Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. The Casio Duro has been getting rather a lot of love on the channel over the last 6 months or so. First of all, I re-reviewed it, then I modded it, and finally I unveiled the brand new for 2021 Marlinless Marlin. Indeed, the Casio Duro gets so much love here and elsewhere, you'd be forgiven for thinking that it is your only option if you're after a sub $100 dive style watch with a quartz movement. But of course, it isn't your only option. There are plenty of others available, and I have one on my wrist today to show you. It is the Timex Allied Coastline. Now, I got one of these in a couple of months ago. I've already included it on the channel. I featured it in my top 10 dive watches under $100, so you know it's got some chops about it. But is it better than the Duro? That's what we're here to find out. Let's flip the camera and do just that. And there they are, the King and the Pretender. I didn't want to do a 10-round watch boxing head-to-head with these two. I think they are quite similar, but there are some notable differences. What I thought I'd do instead was I would rattle through the dimensions and specifications of the Timex, indoor-outdoor wrist shots, a bit of macro, all the usual review components, and then I would bring the Casio Duro back in at the end, give you what I think are the pros and cons of each watch, because there are distinct pros and cons to each. I can see an argument for picking up one. I can also see an argument for picking up the other. As you can see, I've picked up both. But let's briefly talk price to add a bit of context. Now, prices do vary wildly for this Allied Coastline. If you check eBay, from $50 up to $170, I don't think I'll be recommending you to go for that one. Amazon, again, similar, around the $70, $75 up to $100. Obviously, shop around, do your own digging, find the best deal for you for your local currency. I'll leave a couple of links in the description of the video to start you off. I would be much happier recommending you this one at less than $75. If you can find one for that price, I think you're getting a good deal. Less than 100, okay. Don't bother if it's over 100. I just don't think there's that much watch here to justify that price. There is, however, plenty of watch physically. 43 millimeters in diameter, under 12 mil thick though. One advantage of a quartz movement is that they tend to make them nice and slim. 51 lug to lug, so it's actually got a longer lug to lug than the Duro, but as you can see, the lugs do point downwards. They've also taken an interesting decision to make them 20 millimeter lug width. Now, on the supplied rubber strap, plenty of different versions of this. There's canvas straps, there's various things available. You also noted a couple of different dial patterns there. This is very field watch in style. You don't have to go for this one. There are cleaner looks available. On the supplied rubber strap, this one weighs in at 85 grams. All stainless steel construction and a very nice case finish. Let's get a zoom in on that. It's a matte, bead blasted finish. The case is very, very simple, no chamfered edges, nothing fancy here, and it is an unsigned crown, but it looks great, I think, with that finish. Now, I did make a point of calling this a dive style watch in the intro to the video. 100 meters of water resistance. It does have a 60 click unidirectional rotating dive time bezel. However, it does not have a loomed pip on that aluminium insert. But that isn't necessarily a disadvantage for this Timex because it has an Indiglo feature. That's probably the ace card. Just give me another minute and I will show you that. Very, very sturdy bezel action though. Nice and clicky, and everything lines up as it should. You'll also note the second hand is hitting all of those markers. Not something I've been able to say from more expensive Swiss watches that I've had on the channel recently. And this supplied rubber strap is excellent. Almost like a kind of tropic style cross-hatched here, but very, very flexible, very, very comfortable. Timex branded, quick release, which I really do appreciate at this price. And it has a similarly bead blasted and stamped Timex logo there, one retainer, and on the other side, I'll show you on wrist in a minute or two, that ensures that that retainer always sits exactly in the same place on your wrist. No flapping ends with this rubber strap. Great strap for the money. Case back is very simple, stainless steel etched with the Timex logo, just block capitals here, bit of a spec sheet around the outer edges, but it is press on and not screw down, again, dive style rather than necessarily dive watch. So several elements of this watch then that I consider dive watch style rather than pure dive watch. The dial, I would say, is far more field watch style than dive watch. I can't think of too many other dive style watches that have that 1 to 12 and 13 to 24 printed on there like a field watch. Really only certain versions of the Glycine Combat Sub, that's all that springs to mind. Maybe this is attempting to do that crossover as well. Like I said, there are versions which have a cleaner look, there are versions which just have dial markers rather than Arabics, but this is the one that I went for. So all just printed on and nicely done. The larger Arabics and the 5-minute markers are printed in white, and the minute track markers and the 13 to 24 as well as the Timex logo Indiglo WR 100 meters printed in, I would say, a kind of off yellow. The only other little bit of colour on the dial is the triangular marker up at the 12 o'clock. That is orange to match the, let's be honest, rather unusual handset. I haven't seen a handset like this before, and there's probably good reason for that. Semi-skeletonized, very unusual in shape and form, but hey, at least the second hand is a good one, pointing at that minute track around the outer edge. It's certainly legible, perhaps not all that attractive though. So a few positives so far for the Timex Allied Coastline and a few negatives so far. Let's play the ace card though. Let's switch off the lights. And I'm not referring to the tiny amount of lume applied to the end of the hour hand and the minute hand. I'm referring to that Timex's proprietary Indiglo function. You press the crown in and the whole dial lights up like a wee torch. It really is fantastic. Be warned though, if you're pressing that button repeatedly, you will suck the battery dry in no time at all, but it's probably worth it. Indiglo is amazing. And I have to say, it does all right for itself when you get it on wrist as well. 43mm, 51mm, probably on the upper edges for my 7-inch wrist anyway, but the rubber strap is a good one. Soft and compliant, fits nicely, and the downturn from the lugs certainly helped. Relatively slim. It's not exactly sitting flush on my wrist in terms of those lugs. It does jut out a little bit. Word of caution, if you have a smaller wrist than I do, this one isn't going to suit you, I don't think. But if you're a bigger guy, 7.5-inch wrist, 8-inch wrist, you're going to carry this one off no problem. And that's what I was talking about. That retainer, that little Timex branded bit on the edge of the rubber strap means it's always going to sit perfectly. No flappy dog's tongue hanging off the back of your strap here. And the overhead shot, there is certainly a lot going on that dial, but it retains a fair degree of legibility. Because of it, in spite of it, who knows? I wonder if they wouldn't have been better keeping those hands solid. Retaining the colour differentiation, orange minute hand, and keeping that silver coloured hour hand, but making them solid rather than skeletonized. Would that have been too much, or would it have been even more legible than it currently is? I guess we'll never know. Outside natural light, mineral crystal. I don't imagine there's too much anti-reflective coating there, but still fairly legible thanks to those big Arabics printed all over that dial. Now on wrist, it looks pretty good like I said. If I show you the profile shot looking down my wrist, you can see that because it's a 51 lug to lug, it doesn't exactly sit flush. As I was saying, 6 3/4, 6.5-inch wrists, I think you should probably look elsewhere. I find the Duro a bit big for me. This one is probably more wearable, but not perhaps perfect. And that's the pocket shot. Certainly similarities between this one and the Glycine Combat Sub in terms of looks, but if you're getting this one for $50, you're getting it for about a sixth of the price of a Combat Sub. So as promised / threatened, let's bring the Duro back in and run through the relative merits of each of these two watches and answer the question on the thumbnail today: is the Timex Allied Coastline better than the Casio Duro? I suspect you already know the answer. I suspect you probably knew the answer before you clicked on the video. Pros of the Timex then. That Indiglo feature is just outstanding. Blows all lume, even lume dial watches straight out of the water, but do bear in mind it will affect the battery life. The strap is fantastic as well. Definitely one of the better rubber straps that I've seen in a watch for under $100. Case finish, it's fairly simple, but it is fairly nice. And the hands to one side, it's not a bad looking watch. Like I said, more than a whiff of Glycine Combat Sub about it. And it's less bulky than the Duro. If I've got an average size wrist and I'm inclined to wear the Timex rather than the Casio because of the bulk, that gives you an idea of how you might feel about the watch as well. I think the 20mm lugs on the Timex are certainly a big part of that, bringing it down visually and helping it fit my wrist better anyway. Cons. Well, there's only 100 meters of water resistance. It's not
not a proper dive watch, only a dive style watch as discussed. It is a bit ticky as well, it's a bit clicky ticky. Just from certain angles I've been able to hear it, but not from others. And the weird handset. I'm not quite sure why they went for something so outlandish. They don't really fit the overall look of the watch. The Duro then, the pros of the Duro, 200 meters of water resistance and a screw down crown mean it is a proper water watch, ready for anything you can throw at it that involves H2O. I think it has a cleaner look overall. I mean, if you see the two of them side by side, I don't think too many people would disagree with me there. And it is silent, no ticking or clicking from the Duro. The cons are that is an awful rubber strap. I remember the first time that I reviewed the Duro about 3 odd years ago, I bought a strap on eBay literally for $1 and it was exactly the same, if not better than the one is supplied here. So that really has to go if you're keen to wear one of these long term, I think. And it's a bit bigger and bulkier overall. Shorter lug to lug, but it's a little bit thicker, a little bit wider, a little bit heavier, and it just feels like a bigger watch. And I think the 22mm lugs play a part in that. So is the Timex Ally Coastline better than the Casio Duro? Well, I don't think so. The Duro is such a strong offering. It really is. There's a reason why they've been making them for 10 years and they make them in large numbers as well. The Timex isn't a bad watch, and if you're okay with the relative lack of water resistance and you can find one in a style that you like and that Indiglo feature is going to be an advantage to you, then I can definitely see an argument for it. But is it the quartz #1 for less than $100? No, that's still the Duro.
So there you have it, the Timex Ally Coastline. Better than the Duro? Well, probably not, but it does depend on what you're after. It's a bit lighter, it's a bit more wearable, the strap is certainly more comfortable, and that Indiglo feature is absolutely phenomenal if after dark legibility is important to you. However, it's not as robust, it's not as chunky feeling, and it's not as good looking as the Duro, I don't think, regardless of which of the colorways you go for. So perhaps not better, but certainly a viable candidate if it fits in with you. Thanks for watching, I will see you in a future video.